Welcome, everyone. This is the HerdCon Popcast. This is our very first episode. I'm your host, Michelle, and this is my co-host,
Heather.
And today we are here with Dr. Ben Ng from the College of Business at Marshall University. Hello, Ben.
Hello. Thank you for having me on your first ever podcast, and I love the name Popcast.
Oh, yeah, we're having fun. All right, Heather, why don't you get us started today?
Okay. So, Dr. Ng, could you tell us a little bit about your role in establishing the iCenter?
Yeah. So, what the iCenter is it's a Center for Innovation and Entrepreneurship, and like innovation, the I in iCenter. So, we all basically what we try to do is we try to spread, we try to help people create good ideas. Help people spread good ideas, and what you're seeing kind of like here, like is this studio is the podcasting area, which is we really want to help people take their ideas and spread them out to the world. And we kind of thought, hey, a good way to do that would be to create like a content creation lab where people can create podcasts and get their message out to their audiences. So really happy that you guys are able to use this facility, use this studio, so that way you guys can get your awesome message out about all the cool pop culture things that are out there, which I'm, of course, we've talked about this before, a big fan of as well. So so that's sort of what our goal in establishing it is really trying to just give faculty and staff and students and people in the community an opportunity to like talk about what they love and share great ideas about what they love, and then hopefully inspire a generation of like podcasters in the area. I think that would be really, really awesome.
Very awesome. We're definitely very excited about using the studio and being able to work with you on this. So very exciting. As far as your future plans with the iCenter and how you got it started, I mean, what's the history here, and what are some of the future plans that you've got?
Yeah, so this podcasting studio was kind of like what I call a COVID baby, So we originally had a grant to go into high schools in West Virginia to help them come up with good ideas. And because COVID happened, like we weren't allowed to go into the high schools anymore because everything went virtual, and teachers were really just trying to, figure out how to make that transition from live teaching or face-to-face teaching to virtual teaching. So, the grant that we had, they basically were like, well, don't worry about the stuff that you're doing, just figure out other stuff you can do with the grant, and hopefully it will apply to, what you guys were originally. It'll still be in the spirit of what you guys were supposed to be doing. So, but they were really flexible about what we could do as long as it was still could be helpful to the teachers and the students. So, and it was kind of about ideas. So we were like, well, maybe what we should do is figure out a way to make really great content, that teachers could potentially use virtually, like digital stuff. And so we're like, well, maybe we can create like a little studio with some equipment, not like Steven Spielberg levels of equipment to produce like things like the Avengers, but just stuff that actually like students can learn how to do without too much trouble, and not like, like not necessarily film students, but just like regular students that like, I'm a business professor, like business students, business people don't easily know how to make movies or make content, but like, but we wanted to make it approachable so people could like make their own podcast. So like all the stuff that we bought in the studio is really stuff that I would always call like one grade higher than like what a YouTuber at home is doing, or even actually, I guess YouTubers at home are becoming so sophisticated. This is the stuff they have in their in their bedrooms, but it's all like bedroom YouTuber level stuff. And so by doing that, I think we can inspire people to show them that like they can do it themselves, and it's also like fairly affordable to be able to do this stuff. The stuff that we have here is not super expensive, and things that if they build a podcast, they gain an audience. If they start gaining some traction for an audience, then it's like, oh, okay, it's not going to like take that much more to be able to get like a little bit better stuff, and it's not like super complicated to do.
Okay, I know you had a meeting with some of the librarians from Drinko here recently, and you had shared a list of some of the equipment that you guys use. Yeah. Do you have resources like that that are available to just anybody coming to your website, or do you have a website set up just for the iCenter where people could find stuff like that?
Yeah, we have a website, but it's actually and it's got a little bit of information on it right now, but it doesn't have a lot yet. We're actually rebuilding our website like as we speak, but yeah, we do have a list, and we'd be happy to share that with anybody. And eventually, we'll just post it on the website.
Awesome.
That'll have the entire breakdown of like what this setup costs, basically. And we might put like 3 different versions of it. We'll probably have a version where it's like, this is exactly what we bought. And then here's like one that's a little bit cheaper, and then here's one that's a little bit more. Just so like, people have different ranges of, like their budget, I guess, to like, spend for these kinds of things. So, but the setup that we have here, that like in this, where there's like 3 different cameras and the lighting and all that stuff, and the mics, I think it cost around like $5,000, which, again, like, it's not nothing for sure, but at the same time, like, it's definitely something that, like, if you kind of feel like, this is moving in the right direction, your podcast is moving in the right direction. Like, let's say you just started with your iPhone and, and like you started podcasting with just this, that's this technology just in your iPhone is so great these days that like, it actually sounds pretty good. This thing is $1,000, like, so, if it goes well and you're like, oh, okay, I want to take it to the next level, I think the next level would be something that's around $3,000 to $5,000 to do that. So, again, I wouldn't necessarily encourage that as like the first thing you start with, but I definitely think that like, I would definitely encourage just use your phone to kind of learn how to, get through it. And then as you build an audience and you get better at it, if you feel like it's the right direction, then you might want to invest in another couple $1,000 to get like higher grade stuff. And I think this would probably be the next step for that.
Very nice.
Yep.
We appreciate that. All right, Heather?
Do you have any recommendations for students or community members aspiring to start their own podcasts?
Yeah, definitely. I always think that like it always starts with something that you love. Like whatever topic. I mean, you guys chose the podcast because you all love pop culture, and this is like part of who you are. I always feel like the best podcasts aren't like a job or like work. It's like something that you just love talking about, even when you're like at home hanging out and with your friends. Like, it's just something that you enjoy. So I would start there. It's like, what's a topic that I just like spend all my time doing anyway? Then the next thing I'd probably move into is like, what's an area in that topic that people really aren't talking about a whole lot, like, or a special niche. Like, obviously for there's a lot of pop culture stuff out there, but for you all, it's like Marshall, and like that's sort of like the niche. It's like, what's the pop culture scene looking like at Marshall? And I think, so that's really interesting because it's like this little pocket, right? So you're kind of like looking for pockets in this topic where you might have an insight into that topic that other people don't have. I think that would be the next thing. And then the third thing is, once you sort of know that topic, you have this certain perspective, the next thing would probably be just get started, like pick up your iPhone and start recording yourself, or like blogging even maybe at first it's not this like live environment. Maybe it's just like a blog or a top 10 list of stuff, or, I think just creating content at that point, I think is the most important thing, knowing that your first stuff is not going to be good as like episode 1 will never be as good as episode 10, because episode 1 is like the first time you've ever done it, and you're still trying to figure out your voice, and you're trying to figure out like format, and you start, like trying to get comfortable. So, but I think that's the main thing, is really do things that you love, find a unique point of view about the thing that you love, and then really just get started, knowing that you're not going to be perfect right away.
If I might interject.
Of course, yes.
Episode 4 was clearly better than episode 1.
We're talking Star Wars, right?
Yeah.
Yes, that's true. That's true. Although episode 5,
yeah, that was the best.
So 5 was better than 4, but then it gets a little controversial. But
hey,
but
it gets
5,
a little fan service.
Yeah. I know Obi-Wan was last night too at 3 a.m. I've actually been staying up watching these, but not tonight because I had to be ready for you all. Like, I was like, I'm so actually, no spoilers because I haven't watched the episode from last night, Obi-Wan from last night, but just to make sure, I came out firing on all cylinders for you guys.
Oh man, I've only seen the first 2.
Yeah, I'm holding off on that one. I just got all caught up on the current season of Stranger Things. So
yeah. Oh yeah.
now it's time to start going into Kenobi, and
There's so much good stuff out there. I mean, there's so much good. I mean, right now it's like, this is our time, you know, when it comes to when it comes to pop culture. We are living our best lives right now. You know, it's awesome.
Yeah, I was really excited with Netflix's Geeked Week and all the stuff that was coming out.
Well, here's kind of something funny. I actually don't have Netflix. I feel like I'm missing this whole world, so I don't know much about Stranger Things. There's all this whole world of Netflix that I don't know. Like,
I don't know you.
I know.
You need some Stranger
I don't know
Things.
me either.
Yeah,
The current season is just like...
Yeah, I just went through and watched all 3 seasons plus the first half of the 4th.
Wow.
And
We're
that
waiting
was a
on
second time through.
the second half.
There's 2 things that I should be watching that everyone tells me I should be watching and I haven't been watching. One is, of course, Stranger Things, and the other one is Ted Lasso.
I haven't watched that one yet.
Genius.
I'm a soccer, I'm like pop culture and soccer. This is in like entrepreneurship, and those are like the only things I ever do. It's like I'm pretty focused on those 3 things. I don't have much other interests other than those 3. And like, people are like stunned when like, you haven't watched Ted Lasso. And I was like, no, I haven't watched Ted Lasso.
Ted
It's like,
Lasso
yeah,
is
I heard
so
it's
great.
phenomenal.
My boyfriend actually was the one that roped me in.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I see a lot. I know it's always a big deal, like when it starts appearing in Halloween. So when I started seeing like mustaches and like soccer jackets and warm ups I was like, okay, I was like, it's part of pop culture now.
Oh,
you
yeah.
know? It's sort of
Definitely.
It's sort of gotten in there, and of course, you know, I guess like I'm sure a lot of like Halloween is sort of like the costumes there are probably inspired from Comic-Con, you know, and all the different cons that exist out there. So
yeah. Once the cosplayers start doing it, that's when the industry says, "Oh, hey, we could probably make money selling these."
That's right. Yes. And now I might put on my business professor hat, right?
Yep.
And that whole conversation of that side of things. Yes.
Oh man. Now, Ben, have you had a chance to start your own podcast or do anything and record your own episodes or anything?
Yeah, so at the iCenter, you know, we have in addition to your Popcast, you guys are the only Popcast we have, but we do have we have 3 other podcasts, 3 or 4, I can't remember. None of them are mine. They're either student podcasts or faculty podcasts or staff podcasts or community podcasts, and I've appeared on all of them except for one as like a guest on their show. So this is like, you know.
Awesome.
I've never kicked one off, so this is pretty cool. I've always been like later on when they run out of content, it's like, oh, Ben, you want to come on here? It's like, all right, I guess I'll get there since you guys are struggling for content. So you guys actually wanted me, so this is great. No, I'm kidding. But the we haven't really started a full-on podcast yet for me personally or the iCenter. Although we have done one episode, kind of like there's a local entrepreneur who started a furniture store who actually outfitted a lot of the equipment here, or not equipment, but the furniture here. So because he had done that, like I actually had him come in so I could like interview him about his entrepreneurship and his small business and all that, and show him kind of like what we did with the furniture. So we did that, and that's in the can. We actually haven't like distributed it anywhere, but I just have this. I do have like this, I guess the beginnings of a podcast. We have this one episode where I interviewed this person who helped us design the studio, and it maybe we'll build on that and do a couple more episodes in the future. So it'd be a podcast maybe about entrepreneurship, because that's
that'd be very cool.
Yeah. And then the other one, I've talked about this with Paige, who is our producer back here, who's the one who's picking these shots. I think it would be cool to do a podcast about, and this is again just sort of, I grew up. My parents owned a restaurant in Huntington here in this town, so I'm like a restaurant kid, local restaurant kid, and I would love to do a thing where we do a mashup of different restaurant foods. Like, so we go to like, an example would be like, let's go to Austin's and grab their ice cream, but then let's go to Frost Top and grab the root beer, and then let's make Frost Top's Austin root beer, and then like I would make something like this Frankenstein creation, and then you would make one, and then we'd have a judge to kind of like rate it or something.
Sounds like someone's channeling David Chang.
Sounds like it'd be tasty.
I was thinking like almost like David Chang, like but also sort of like Rhett and Link, sort of what they do a little bit. So I think it's a little bit inspired by definitely me being a foodie and local restaurant person, but then also like the game show aspect of like where I'm like, so that would be, I think it'd be like Frankenstein, small business Frankenstein mashup type of podcast would be kind of fun.
That sounds like it'd be amazing, actually.
So
I would watch that.
well, since you guys are having me as your first guest, you guys would have to be the first guest of this pod.
That would be awesome. I am all for that. You just give us the time.
So are there any complications to vidcasting versus podcasting? Because I noticed that we're up there on the screen.
Yeah, I definitely think it's another layer that of, so vidcasting I think is there's other elements to think about. When you're doing your podcasting, all you're really focused on is like, how do I sound? And I think because of that, there's less things to juggle versus like if you add in the element of video, now you have to like figure out where like the camera and getting the lighting right and then the decor of the set. And like, so you're sort of, you definitely have a lot more things to focus on and to make sure things are right. And of course, more things can go wrong too. There's more variables in play, I guess is really what's happening. That said, I think it's like completely worth it. Like if you can do the video on top of the audio, it's worth it because you can always extract the audio and just do an audio version. That's fine. But then if people want to watch the video, I just feel like it's more engaging and it's and people are able to see expressions more and there's more subtlety in it. I actually very seldomly listen to pure podcasts, audio podcasts. I tend to watch mostly podcasts that also have a video element on YouTube. Like I like to sort of see their reactions. I like to be able to see it as well. So I think it's like well worth the hassle of doing it because I don't think it's too big of a hassle. And it's just even like the personality of like, looking at this logo, it's like really cool, the logo that you guys made. And seeing how like you kind of like incorporated that into like the look of the show. And I think that like, I don't know if that really comes through as much as in a just pure audio format. So I think the vid side of it is like not essential, but I think worth it for the effort for sure to do. Yeah.
Now, I know I've been kind of playing around learning about social media marketing and preparing for this, especially, looking at video casting and podcasting and stuff like that. And, I guess you'd have the option then, you could put it up on YouTube, you can put it up on TikTok in small sections. So, I mean, I guess it does kind of give you a broader audience, I guess.
Yeah,
versus than just being up on like Spotify and Apple and whatnot.
Yeah, I feel like as a marketing professor, I probably should have like said that. So like you look at you're teaching me something. No, but I love that. It's a great point. Yeah, I think like when you have the video content, what that enables you to do is take that video content and you can like. You could turn it into like a little GIF or something. You can like extract it, and that could be your promotions, right? That could be your marketing.
Oh yeah.
So like. I should have probably thought of that, but I'm glad that you did. But yeah, exactly. To me, that's exactly right. Like I think if you, if you do have the video element, it gives you like more material to cut and chunk into promotional material to like get the audience you need.
Repurpose, reuse.
Yeah. Break up, this one podcast into like small little snippets of different like sizzle reels and all sorts of stuff.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I think you're 100% right. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So, anybody thinking about doing podcasting, this is a quick advice.
Yes.
Yeah, make sure you get it out there. Diversify it.
100%. I love it. Yes.
All right, Heather, what do you got?
I thought that was your question, but I'll take it.
Yeah, go for it.
So do you listen to any podcasts, and if so, which?
Yeah, I like I said, I tend not to listen to pure audio podcasts, but there are some that I definitely do. A lot of them involving business, like I'm, just like startup entrepreneurship, and so Freakonomics is really interesting. I always like listening to that one. There's some other business ones called like, now I'm like blanking. I'm under the lights. Masters of Scale and How I Built This there are two other ones out there. Comedically, like I do like a couple like comedy podcasts, but again, I like watching the the YouTube version of them more than the. I'm a big fan of. There's a comedian named Bobby Lee who's really funny.
Okay, yeah.
He has a podcast called. He has multiple, but the one that I like the most is called Bad Friends, and it's him and one of his another comic friend, and they just like are bad friends to each other, and they're both comedians, so they're hilarious, but they're just kind of like always like I don't know, just giving each other crap, and it's kind of funny when. Comedians, I think, are really good at podcasting just because they're just like naturally so good at like improv and just say wild things. And they generally, are just like automatically kind of like ready, like podcast ready, just like naturals at it. So I like those. I mean, I watch a lot of like YouTube vloggers who I guess don't necessarily even have podcasts, but they are. And like a lot of
Link.
Rhett and Link, I'm a big fan of Rhett and Link. But even like, I guess more with regard to pop culture, like Screen Rant, New Rock Stars, Red Letter Media. These are all like different shows that YouTube. I don't know if they're considered podcasts, but they're definitely in that same world, I guess. Because they don't have anything where it's just video, where it's just audio. It's like. It's both.
Well, it's still that
like
the
YouTubers.
content creation and sharing, I guess, a little bit of whether it's personal experience, personal opinion, and things. So yeah, very conversational.
Yeah,
a lot of times.
Yeah, and I'm a big fan of like the theory, like Star Wars theory type of channels. Like I love when people come up with stuff. And a lot of times the stuff is actually better than what ends up happening on the real show. You're like, oh my gosh, you should have totally did like I love that theory. I had this super elaborate Star Wars theory that I'm convinced was better than what would have happened.
Oh, do you share?
I mean, we'd be in for like 30 minutes, but like, none of it ended up coming true. It was before the final. It was before Episode 9. It was before the final. Was it Rise of the Skywalker? Was the ninth, right?
Right.
So it was before that, and basically, I had this whole theory. I'll give you the short version because I can go. I mean, I can go deep on this with you guys. I don't know. We'll lose all our audience with this one. Well, maybe I don't know. It depends on who's out there. But so the general point of the theory was that that Rey, because we never knew who Rey's parents were, right? It was like this back and forth kind of thing. Was actually a clone of Anakin's mom, Shmi Skywalker.
Oh, that would be genius.
I had this whole thing. That would have made it like, it was such an intricate thing, and I thought I have a lot of Star Wars friends, and they all said this is like awesome. They're like, you solved it. This is what Episode 9 is going to be. I was like, oh yeah, I've nailed it. And then I watched Episode 9. It was like none of that was in there.
No spoilers, but that's not
don't
quite
worry,
where it went.
That's not a spoiler because it didn't happen. Like Rey is not a clone of Shmi Skywalker. But yeah,
That would have been amazing.
Yeah. Well, and the reason why is like, I mean, gosh, now we're getting like probably too deep into this stuff, but there's that one scene in Episode 8 where she's looking in the mirror in the cave, and there's like multiple versions of her in the mirror. So I was like, oh, it's like the premonition, right? Like that's her force visions that are allowing her to see like the future, and there's multiple versions. So she's a clone, right? So it's like there's multiple. There was like, that mirror effect where it's So I was like, it's got to be she's a clone. It's like, but then who's she a clone of? She looks a lot like Shmi Skywalker, and that would make total sense. Yeah, but I had this whole thing.
It's a brilliant theory. I like that. You need to go into your whole own fan fiction on it and just run with it, because I can see people going nuts for that.
I wish I had. Well, I'm telling you, it's a whole script. Like it's a whole script in my head. But it's funny. There was no HerdCon podcast at the time that I could express this on. So it was just kind of like, it was just sort of things I would just have these conversations about with friends of mine. And but I do love those YouTube videos about like these sort of theories and getting into like the world and the mythology of like the universe of Marvel and DC and Star Wars but yeah, I watch a lot of content on that, probably like way too much. But yeah,
I've been kicking into Stranger Things heavily. Oh my gosh, there are so many videos out there.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. It's become I mean, definitely another one of those universes and I think that's where really pulp culture has really taken just this new level of like, because of like streaming platforms and because there's, back in the day, it's like I'm old enough to remember where there was only like, 3 or 4 channels. And then after that, cable came around and there was like 30 or 40 channels. But now because of streaming platforms, there's so much opportunity for different stories to be told. And because there's all these different, like areas that you can go deeper in, it's really sort of allowed these really rich universes to be built. And so definitely, like, even though, again, I don't have Netflix, I should probably, not admit that, but like lose my pop culture card. But like, I think, these shows now are so deep and they're so well written and the universes are so deep that, and of course, like if you just look at the Marvel Cinematic Universe, we're 20 some movies, films deep into that.
Yes.
And how rich that universe is. Yeah. So you can just like, get into like massive tunnels, just like learning about like all the theories and what could happen.
Easter eggs.
I'm a big Easter egg person.
my
Everybody's,
gosh.
You look back through
I'm a
different
huge Easter egg person.
episodes,
Yeah.
and then once you really get into some of the YouTube stations and stuff like we were talking about, it's like, oh my gosh, they notice that there's this image in the background of, whether it's, there's a Star Wars figure here or there's E.T. over here. And
Or-
there's all these references to all these other things.
Yeah.
Or whether or
amazing.
not Miss Marvel is like, echoing on the older Captain Marvel. Or
Yeah. I think because, that's one thing I think you all are a lot more knowledgeable than I am about is like, I'm a movie and TV person. I'm not really necessarily a comic book person. So I never really understood as much, like, I didn't have much knowledge about like the origins and how true they are to their actual source material.
Oh, yeah.
But I'm learning a lot of it just kind of like just being like watching the movies and film. Like I've been brought in through that realm of it. But I definitely, have a great appreciation for like when it's true to who they're supposed to be and they haven't just kind of like, I don't know, because I always feel like that's like the key is like, did the people that took the material have like a respect and understanding and knowledge like of that universe? Because that's when it's, I guess, disappointing is like when it's not true to like they just like did it to make money. They didn't really like care about like the characters and that universe. And I think when they're able to do that, when they're able to demonstrate like that kind of knowledge through like Easter eggs, and I'm a huge proponent of like canon. Like I think like real fans can immediately spot when something's like not there when it's like when it doesn't match up with canon. And so I'm always like interested in like, okay, here's sort of like the canon of the storyline, and what you just did there, like you wouldn't like fans are going to notice that right away that doesn't match up, so which tells me they didn't really put like the amount of like love and care they probably should have into
Well,
it.
does the movie follow the book? I mean, you get that big argument. Anytime there's a new film or TV show come out, you get the, oh my God, they left this out.
Right.
Or why did they change that?
I always think the book, that one's trickier because within the, I guess like with comics, there is that visual part of it where you can sort of like, oh, okay, that look, it's like, if you're a director of a movie, you can match it up a little bit better because there is like that visual. But in a book, like the director is the person reading it, and their vision of what they're reading could be totally different than another person's vision, and then what ends up being represented by a director on the screen in film. So, I do think that like if you're adapting a book, it's a tough job.
Oh yeah. Well, it's kind of like the difference between say the Harry Potter movies and 300.
Right.
So 300, I mean, they could literally go shot for shot.
They go shot for shot. Yeah.
And really have a blast with it, and they've got a storyboard already there.
Right.
They don't have to produce that at all. So yeah.
Yeah, and actually, I guess a lot of times, like you can go shot for shot, and it doesn't like necessarily even translate all that well. Because I know Zack Snyder with like Watchmen, it's like very close to the to the source material, but to the point where I think the people that were Watchmen fans really liked that, but then the people that weren't thought it was like kind of like, whoa, I don't even get it, So I think it was like it created like this weird sort of thing. So yeah,
Yeah.
it's an interesting topic for sure. Like, you know, trying to create something that the original fans liked, but then also I guess has like some level of like mainstreamness to be able
Yeah.
to pull in new fans as well. I think is
Yeah.
always an interesting challenge. I think Marvel's approach has always been pretty good because
Yes.
they keep the essence of the character, but then also make it more approachable. Because sometimes you know comic. I mean, again, I'm not an expert on comics. I know, but I do know enough where like sometimes it gets super deep and weirdo. Like the comic
Yeah.
world can get super weirdo because they just
Yeah.
they have so many issues. They've been around forever. They're like,
Well, and you'll
change things
have
up.
the
Yeah.
different authors and artists will change up their own versions of the characters in
Right.
comics. So I think the comic industry is a little more used to the idea of expanding a character.
Yeah.
Well, like
And
in
playing
Doctor
with it.
Strange,
Right.
for example. I mean, they really expanded him the last go around.
Yeah, I the movie, right? Like,
Yeah,
not the
I
comic.
felt
Okay.
so bad for my
Yeah.
parents. They went in.
Like, what just happened?
They went in to see it because of Benedict Cumberbatch, and they had not seen the first movie.
Like, I'm gonna need some
They
cliff
hadn't
notes here.
seen
Yeah.
any of the previous movies, and so they're
Ooh.
just desperate to get out and see a movie.
And you took him to Multiverse of Madness,
Yeah. Oh, I
Ooh.
didn't take them. They went
Oh,
on
they went on
their
their
own.
Oh.
and then probably like a billion questions for you afterwards. Or did they
So
just
what
give
did
up?
I just see?
I
Yeah.
think they just gave up.
They just gave up.
I was just like, I'm so sorry.
Yeah,
I did warn you.
it's pretty. Yeah, I
Because
mean,
that was
Yeah.
talking about Easter eggs. That movie was full of them.
full of Easter eggs. I mean, multiple variants of Doctor Strange. I mean, you didn't know what universe you're necessarily in. It's a complicated watch if you're not like into it. And then you kind of had to watch a little bit of Loki. You kind of had to watch a little bit of WandaVision. I mean, there was especially like I would imagine that the people that didn't watch WandaVision are probably like, wait a second, Scarlet Witch was like good.
Yeah.
And now she's like the most evil villains.
I
Like,
know.
like that's a pretty stark turnaround if you haven't like watched the stuff in the middle. And so yeah, I mean, if you only watch the Avengers,
Yeah.
and she was like, you know, a hero in that one, and then she just makes such a fast turn in this one. But you know, there is that whole series in between of, you know, and WandaVision, but I just feel like, you know, your average person wouldn't know that.
Yeah.
And just how complex that plot is in general. I mean, they're like,
Well, everything's
Yeah.
so connected, but not. I mean, it's kind of its own thing, but there's
Right.
so much background,
Right.
and if you've not picked up the background, it is much more difficult to follow.
and it was,
Like, for
so-
example, Professor Xavier.
yeah,
I mean,
right.
if you hadn't seen the the cartoon,
Right.
you wouldn't have picked up on his wheelchair.
Right. Right. Yeah. Wow.
Uh,
You know, because I am pretty familiar with all that stuff. I didn't even think about that. But yeah, there's probably so many things that your average person would have been completely lost on.
Yeah.
But I'm sitting there cheering. I was like, oh my gosh,
I know.
Fantastic Four, Reed Richards. Oh my gosh, you know, like
Professor X is in the MCU.
yeah, yeah. But that must have been pretty wild for like somebody who maybe watched, you know, the X-Men, but then, you know, really doesn't know anything else besides that, and then has really picked up on this. Like, wait a second, what on earth? Like, how did that happen? So yeah, very, very complex watch there. I think that's pretty funny. You sent your parents, or your parents watch that.
Yeah.
And it's like they definitely need like a Sherpa to help them sort of navigate that world. You know, like
Somebody needs Cliff Notes.
yeah,
Yeah,
Oh.
they are not geeky at all.
yeah.
So it's just like, okay, have fun.
Hope you enjoy that.
Call me later if you got some questions.
Like her eyes are spitting in the back of their heads. They have, like steam coming out of their ears. Like, what did I just watch? And it actually is one of those scarier. Like it's got that whole, you know, Evil Dead, Bruce Campbell vibe to
Yes.
it, where there's
Mm.
lots
Oh,
of
it even
zombies.
had Bruce Campbell in it.
Literally had Bruce Campbell in it. Yeah. So I think that whole thing is kind of makes it a little. It's definitely a more challenging and different like vibe than a lot of the other. They took a different shot with it. I thought
Okay,
within
yeah.
Marvel, like that one, I felt like more the director's voice came through than maybe some of the other Marvel movies.
Okay, this is totally off topic.
Yeah.
So, warning. At the very Oh God, this is a spoiler.
You just have to say spoiler. You just have to look.
Spoiler!
There you go. There you
Everybody,
go.
shh.
About multiverse?
Yes.
Okay, yeah. Spoiler about multiverse first, yeah.
Okay. At the very end, where Doctor Strange is striding out, he runs into Clea, and then there's that guitar riff, and then he falls down, and he's like, ah. I honestly came out of the movie thinking that it wasn't Doctor Strange, but a variant that had come through.
Interesting.
Could be very interesting.
I'd have to. That might be worthy of a rewatch right there to see if I.
Yeah.
I don't. I'm trying to picture it, and I'm not able to like have enough memory to be able to say, oh yeah, or no.
Mm-hmm.
I might have to rewatch and see with that in mind, thinking like, is there something there? You know, I love this stuff. This is like the stuff that I like the most.
Yeah, that one's still on my to-watch list.
That's interesting.
I'm trying to catch up with all of them.
Oh, so
they're overwhelming because it's like there's so many of them.
Got it.
Oh my gosh, did I spoil it for you?
Oh no.
Okay.
I don't know if there's enough context there.
Yeah. That's a very small
specific
snippet.
scene. I know it's the scene you're talking about. That's a very specific scene. Yeah. Yeah. And it has nothing, and it really doesn't necessarily reveal anything about like the plot. Yeah. Although I think I did spoil something about the Scarlet Witch thing though.
Oh, you're fine. You're fine.
Because if you haven't seen it, that definitely gives it away.
Yeah.
So
Well,
sorry
she
about
starts
that.
out
Yeah.
as
That's
a
actually
kind
a
of
big one.
darker character at the very beginning before she joins the Avengers. So yeah, it's like
Yeah.
I definitely. So I'm still, pretty new at the podcasting thing myself. I'm, got to start declaring spoiler alerts myself. I didn't even think about it.
That's all right. We'll tag it before we publish it and say.
Be careful,
there's
spoilers
spoiler
about
alert.
multiverse. Yeah.
You got to have your trigger warnings and everything. Yeah. And this one's spoiler alert.
You're gonna get the trolls coming after you. You spoil the multiverse.
Oh my
It's
gosh.
like from this point in the podcast to this point, you're gonna have to stop for a moment, just mute. Once you hit this time code, you'll be fine.
Yeah. Oh wow. Yeah. If you guys start like learning how to time code, that's gonna be like you guys are gonna be like pros.
Oh yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Well, since we're talking about things like the Marvel Universe and pop culture, let's talk about the intersection of the business world and education with pop culture. Because I mean, we've seen what Disney has done with our Marvel Universe, and it is
Pretty impressive.
amazing and lucrative and insane.
Yeah. Yeah, so this is a really interesting topic for me simply because, like I'm a marketing professor and I've always thought like pop culture. So like without getting too philosophical on you guys, like this is a really interesting conversation for me. If it gets too boring, just like fall asleep and then I'll fall. I'm like, okay, I'm getting boring. But so I kind of think about like how like so there's like art, right? There's like film is art and, art tends to be generally kind of like, if it's like pure art, it's like avant-garde and it pushes the envelope and it's kind of in many ways not for regular people.
Yeah.
Because it's supposed to be experimental, it's supposed to be on the fringes of like society and that kind of stuff I like, but at the same time it's not necessarily for the masses. It's not like for like the average people like me, and even though I have an appreciation for like art of that sort, it's still like it's intentionally like supposed to be, fringy and edgy and all that stuff. But what I generally like is like pop culture art, because it is for people like it is for people like me and so many people can enjoy it. And I get it's maybe not as like there's always like Marvel movies I think are masterpieces, but they'll never win Oscars, and like they'll never necessarily be seen as like films, and I've always thought that like when I think of like the best movies in my mind, my favorite movies, the ones I would watch 20, 30 times, or these are like, it's like Dark Knight, and
Yes.
the original like Endgame and Event. These are like masterpieces in my mind, and a lot of it. I think what's happened because of the emergence of like the Marvel Cinematic Universe and just sort of this like push of all this awesome content, it's really kind of like elevated. I think business and getting the content out there and these universes out there has allowed it to be to be more. It's raising the level of these universes in a way where I think they are like starting to push towards like, you know, there are a couple movies that I actually think are getting worthy of Oscar contention, like the newest The Batman, you know, like that's getting close to like really like what I would consider as like more like art, but I think the reason, but it's bringing on, but it's even though it's like becoming more artistic, I guess, it's accessible to regular people, and I think businesses, I guess, has helped allow that. It's sort of like pop culture to me kind of like lies at the intersection of like art and business. Or like right there, it's sort of like helps make things more accessible and to more people. So, you know, like, and I'm sure that might be controversial because even just the idea of like popular culture is like kind of like mainstream or whatever, but like, and that's where I guess business shines, because that's where if you you know, are able to sort of make, like, if you can create something that's popular and people love, then you can like create more of it, and you can like get deeper into that universe now. I mean, like, obviously there wouldn't be 20 some Marvel movies if like it wasn't successful and people loved it, you know? So
it was well marketed.
Yeah.
Oh yes, very well marketed.
And it took a long time to get it figured out, because there were a lot of like bad superhero movies there for a long time before they started getting it right, you know? So, you know, but I definitely think that, you know, business has added a lot to pop culture in terms of like sort of getting it out there. And because of that, it's really advanced like these universes in really awesome ways. And then the other thing I just like seeing, just from a marketing perspective, even though like the way YouTubers talk or like content creators talk, you know, they talk sort of like in marketing terms now. So like, you know, people will talk about like content and IP and franchises and branded universes and, you know, things like canon and retconning. These are all sort of like marketing brand ideas and concepts that I think is really kind of cool, that like people, I think it has made people far more marketing savvy, you know, like, you know, because now it's like a really great touch point of like, of what marketing is or what business is, or like these universes in many ways. And I think that's sort of made people like more savvy to marketing. So yeah, it's definitely a, you know, I think it's personally very rewarding to kind of like to see pop culture, but then also sort of see it sort of like the overlaps of business with pop culture. I mean, again, I think it's a great time.
Some of that is partially because of the like things like the streaming services and YouTube, TikTok, the ability to, as individuals, come out, get into this content creation, talk about the things that you're excited about, which of course, you know, hits a lot of our pop culture, and actually probably promotes a lot of the more indie kind of concepts and whatnot, whether it's gaming and stuff like that. Do you think that's kind of related?
Yeah, I think like it's more technology, I would say, than business, I guess. But I guess business enables technology, and technology enables business, and I guess they kind of grow on themselves. But I think like what technology does is it democratizes interests. It democratizes the ability to create content. So, you know, just kind of like going back to that earlier example of like originally there were like 3 channels, and like you had prime time, which was like 8 to 10. So you really only have like a handful of shows that everyone kind of has to watch, regardless if you like them or not. But now, like, you know, what people can do is they can create what they love and find other people that love what they love.
Yes.
And of course, it will never be as many people, like, because back in the day, we all knew the same shows. Even if we didn't like the same shows, we all knew them.
Yeah.
This is not the case anymore. Like now, we can all love the same shows, but we're not necessarily all watching the same shows, right? When it comes to like YouTube or whatever channels, like there's certain channels that I'll watch, but other people won't watch because like I'm interested in it. And I think that's because of technology. I mean, it's so easy now to be able to like, you know, buy this type of this technology where it's not super expensive and to produce things like this. And I think so now it just sort of has enabled all that stuff to happen.
Well, it's kind of like an expansion of the early cable channels, where you would have the little local cable channels that would play out the kind of UHF kind of thing. Elvira, you know,
Yeah.
The whole concept of, you've got your local little person who introduces this horror movie, and that's their thing. And it is kind of interesting seeing
Yeah.
how much we have expanded that with things like YouTube and being able to just, hop on there and talk about songs that we love.
Yeah.
And like the guy on TikTok, I cannot think of the artist's name, but he started singing he's got a song out that talking about, I got wasted.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, you've seen that, right?
I think so.
And, it's a really great song talking about addiction and everything. And he invited people to duet him.
Got it.
And
Yeah.
there is just hundreds of videos that people submitted duetting him, writing their own verse to his song.
Oh, wow. Wow.
And it's amazing.
Wow.
And it is kind of interesting because it's become a group creative project.
Yes.
And he's actually putting out like an extended recording with these individual verses that have been created. It is really cool.
Yeah, I definitely think one of the biggest outcomes of, democratizing the technology to be able to create is now you can co-create with these universes. So, when I just think about like HerdCon in general, that's effectively what that is, or like, what like meme culture is people really kind of latching on to something that is meaningful to them. Maybe it's a TikTok, maybe it's an entire, galaxy of Marvel. But either way, for people to be able to take those universes or those videos and kind of put their own spin on it and showcase that either on TikTok or YouTube or at a con, I think that's just awesome. It allows you to kind of like be part of it in a way that you can never be part of these things before, and then share that with other people who are also doing their own creations and their own spins on it. I think, I can't imagine what life is going to be like in 100 or 200 years, but we're living in such an, like, I really am like, especially because like, as a kid of the 80s, I felt like I never had to grow up because like, as I started getting older, a lot of the things that I still loved still like stayed relevant because technology allowed those things to stay relevant and actually are bigger now than they ever have been. Like, I mean, there's so much. I'm always shocked when I hear a
80s
kid.
style is coming back.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
I'm always shocked when I see, somebody loves something from the 80s, like that's a lot younger than me, like a college, like one of my students. It's like 20 years old and they'll be like, no, I love that too. And I'm like, how have you even, like, Saved by the Bell? Like, how do you even know Saved by the Bell? Like, how do you know that? And they're like, oh, because it's, it's on Netflix or whatever. I just find that to be amazing, that people can.
I get amazed. I have a 12-year-old.
Yeah.
And, of course, she's been exposed to all the crazy that is me and my husband and our interests. But at
All
the
of
same
it.
time, all of it, yes.
It's a lot of crazy right now.
Everything from Insane Clown Posse and Cradle of Filth and gorillas and all this stuff.
Yeah.
And, she's got a wide variety of things she's been exposed to.
You've taught her well.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
She's all over the place.
That's awesome.
But I get just such a tickle out of, talking to her and then finding out that, like Gorillas here recently, finding out that she loves gorillas.
That's amazing.
I was like,
yeah.
Gorillas?
What year are we in? Yeah. It's like stuff I listen to. Yeah.
Or like
2022 and you're listening to gorillas? What? And it
Bush.
wasn't something I had introduced. So,
Yep.
Yeah, Kate Bush is.
yes, Kate Bush is
Yeah,
in the
she's
top
trending right
10.
now.
She's making a comeback? Oh.
Yeah,
Yes,
because
because of Stranger Things.
Yes.
They used
They used a song of hers. Yeah.
Running
one of-
up that hill.
yeah,
Interesting.
from 1984 or 1986.
86, I think.
And it's kind of sat there, and then in the last week or two, it's hit like the top 4.
Right.
Yeah, there's a
On
whole
Billboard
meme
charts.
about that. About gosh, it connects Stranger Things with Kate Bush, and then there's Top Gun.
Oh
Right.
yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh,
yes.
and then the
Yeah.
whole Russia.
Well, and we've had
situation.
all the fun
Yeah,
too
it's
in
true,
the
yeah.
past of how games can affect things like that. So like when
Mhm.
Guitar Hero came out,
Yeah.
suddenly music that hadn't really had a lot of playthroughs just went through the roof
Right.
because people are like, oh, I really like that. I didn't know that song. And you're like, I grew up with that song.
Yeah, and I definitely like.
It's
I'm not
new.
I'm not like a kid of the '70s, but who's that one? Like I'm probably gonna butcher her name, but the kids all Dua Lipa, like some like singer that like the kids
Dua
love,
Lipa.
right? Dua Lipa. So like came across one of her songs and it was like pulled straight out of the '70s. I was like, oh my gosh, it was like so inspired by the '70s. So I guess the point is, I guess if you if you're unfashionable for long enough, then you'll like come back in style.
Very true. Well,
So like I went out of style for so long that I came back in.
yeah, exactly. Well, it's back to that kind of weird information age. We are so inundated with the ability to access stuff.
Yeah.
Decades and decades worth of stuff, and it's suddenly kids get a hold of it at middle school, and the next thing you know, poodle skirts are back in. Just
gosh.
bam. It's like, whoa, how did this happen? It's like, did you see Rockabilly? And it's like, holy cow.
Yeah.
People are dressing up.
Or burlesque.
Or burlesque, yeah. It's just kind of crazy to see what kind of comes out of that.
Yeah, for sure.
And then, of course, all of the industry that comes up out of that, because once it becomes popular, then you get the different businesses selling, here's, fashion industry jumping in and
Right.
Running with it. Go to Hot Topic and they go
Hot
cosplay
Topic, yeah.
nuts.
Yeah.
It's like, woo. All right.
So, out of curiosity, since we have you here,
Mm-hmm.
do you have any suggestions for us for marketing HerdCon, which is our convention that we have in the spring of the year?
Yeah. So I always think that the most important thing is to really sort of put yourself in the shoes of the the people that are attending it, right? So all the cosplayers and so what I would probably do is like do a lot of like observations of like if you just sort of follow their day and look for the high points and low points, like what's really putting a smile on their face and what's like frustrating. And then sort of like kind of like map out like their experience throughout the day. And if you kind of have everybody sort of with their radar up, kind of looking at that, you guys can like reconvene afterwards and you can say, hey, what were some of the high points that you guys noticed that our attendees were enjoying, and then what were some of the low points that we think we can do better on next time. And then that in itself is huge. Like, cause then what you can do is you can start like really optimizing for a better experience, right? So the first thing is definitely like learning just from like walking a mile in the shoes of the people that are doing it, are your attendees. The second thing I would probably do is look for different ideas from other cons that like and then taking those ideas and spinning them in a way that makes them more HerdCon.
Oh, yeah.
So what can you learn from other cons that you might be able to put your own special spin on to make it unique for Marshall? And then the third one is a lot of times you can look at other industries that are kind of like in the same world but not necessarily con. So for example, like Disney World isn't necessarily a con, or like Halloween, isn't necessarily a con, but these are things that you could potentially learn from that might inspire you to create more unique ideas for the HerdCon. So I'm actually headed to Disney World next week, checking out Galaxy's Edge. I can't wait. I'm like, yeah.
Envy.
I know. I've been looking forward to this for ever since it was created. So I'm like,
you have to share impressions and pictures.
I mean, yeah, I'm definitely going to have to put some money away because I'm going to be spending it like crazy when I go down there. Like definitely coming back with lightsabers and R2D2s and,
gosh, a $300 lightsaber.
I was going to say, I've seen the videos where you can make your own kind of like BB-8.
Yes.
Oh.
Yes, they have a droid shop. There's a
droid shop. And I'm like,
yeah. So I'm a little nervous for my bank account, but I'm very excited. But yeah, so I think like looking at different places that also sort of have kind of like similar, but not exactly what you do. And that can always give you some ideas. And I think if you just sort of look for different ideas from these different groups, then it's inevitable that you'll be like, oh yeah, like we should do this, So, I think that's always better advice than me just saying, oh yeah, here's, I wouldn't say that there's any like playbook to success.
Mhm.
It's really just really falling in love with like what you do and the people that you're doing it for. And I think that's always that's always the best advice for to be
Yeah.
successful in business. Yeah.
Yeah, we have had a blast with it. I
Yeah.
have to admit.
Doing stuff like this, I think, is awesome because it sort of like builds out like more avenues for the attendees to kind of like re-engage with you guys and keep conversations going and
throughout the year.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
think that was a brilliant idea.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we're really hoping to expand on the idea of HerdCon is something more than an annual kind of event. So between the Popcast and we're actually talking a little bit about doing some like monthly events on campus
Yep.
and some stuff directly with the students.
Yep.
So yeah, I think it's going to be a lot of fun.
I think that's a genius move. I think it's great. Yeah. So I think you guys are already halfway home on that one. Yeah.
Yeah, we're starting a student club.
Yeah, we
Oh, wow,
are
okay.
currently working on a student
Yeah.
club. I've got the basics set up, so right now it's just going down to the recruitment aspect, trying to get students involved, and the idea is to get them more directly involved in the planning for HerdCon and with marketing around campus, helping to talk about what kind of activities and events they want to see happen. So,
I suspect I'll make a prediction. I suspect you guys. I bet your guys' club will be either the biggest or second biggest on campus in a matter of a couple
Aw.
years.
I really hope
I think
so.
I think you all in the gaming club will be neck and neck for the biggest on campus. If I had to
Yeah.
guess, I think it's going to be huge.
I'm
Yeah.
really excited about the
Yeah.
gaming club.
Yeah.
Well, I just saw how many people were at HerdCon last
Oh,
year.
yeah.
you know,
We
or,
had
like, it
over
was, like, it's
1,500.
packed.
Yeah.
And it was amazing.
Yeah, yeah.
So yeah, did you hear that they're adding a space in the student center for the Smash Brothers
No.
for
Yeah.
the gaming club?
Wow,
So they're
yeah.
actually going to have a lab there in
Yeah.
the basement
Oh,
beside
yeah.
Marco's that will
Wow.
be just for them.
Wow.
And yeah,
That's pretty impressive.
the
Yeah.
dedicated gaming space.
Yeah.
And I think IT is supposed to be working on setting up computers and stuff for that area.
Oh, it's super cool. No, I
So-
actually hadn't heard that. That's awesome.
Yeah, it's very awesome.
Yeah, it's a great idea though. Yeah.
They're kind of expanding on the idea of the esports leagues at other
Right.
universities and trying to build that up and expand it. And I'm like, oh, I'm so
Yeah.
excited. I've been talking to 2D Carter. For,
Yeah, 2D.
Yes.
I
It's like,
love 2D.
"Dude,
Yeah.
Tell me about this.
Definitely a gem at Marshall, and
Oh, yeah.
it definitely makes sense that he's on the lookout for
Oh, yeah.
ways to create better experiences for
Oh,
our
yeah.
students and give them ways to kind of like kick back and relax
Mm-hmm.
and meet new friends and hang out with their friends and
Oh, yeah.
that's awesome. Yeah,
It's
Yeah.
more than just Starbucks.
yeah.
Yes, it's definitely
more than just Starbucks. I Smash Brothers I know a little bit about, but I'm definitely more of like the cartridge.
Oh, yeah.
Super Mario. I'm a Super Mario. Give me Super Mario. Just side scroll.
Well,
like bump
the-
into.
What is it? Beckley
first
Gaming
year.
Expo is coming up.
Oh,
August or is it July? No, it's
It's
July.
July.
And so if you're into retro gaming, they're doing a duck hunt tournament.
Oh really?
Yeah.
So
I enjoyed Duck Hunt. I was never all that good at it.
Yeah.
I'd always have to cheat and put the gun right into the screen.
That,
But, like,
that was
Just-
one of our biggest first year events.
I was a massive cheater at Duck Hunt because I was never that great at it.
I remember that.
Walk right up to the screen.
Yeah, I just saw Desiree.
Yeah.
Desiree, the chair of the showrunner for CosicCon and the Beckley.
Yeah, she
event.
does that in the Beckley Gaming Expo.
Yeah, I just saw her last weekend.
Yeah.
That's
and
awesome.
she gave me a little postcard for it, and I was just like, "Oh, it's so cute."
I know gaming has gotten a little bit out of my league because just by the controller. So,
Yeah.
with the original NES controller, there was like literally two buttons. You had A, B, and that was it. And I guess if you want to count select and start, but it was A and B. And then I remember
B
they
up, down.
upgraded to like Sega Genesis had 3 buttons.
Yep.
And then
Yeah.
PlayStation you started getting triggers up top
Yeah.
and then you had and then you're up to like 8 buttons and like I was like, oh my gosh. Once it kind of got to the PlayStation controller where you had the triggers up top, then
Yep.
4 buttons
4
here,
buttons.
Yeah.
Yep.
then you had your analog and then the directional pad. I was like, I'm like not smart enough to do this anymore.
It's okay. It's okay. It gets
Oh,
overwhelming.
I got overwhelmed by the buttons of the controller.
But
Yeah.
have you seen that you can get essentially on the Switch now, I think you can get like a whole backlog of
Yes.
Nintendo and
Wow.
Super Nintendo
Wow.
and
Yeah.
GameCube games,
Yeah.
and it's actually encouraged my husband because we have collections
Yeah.
of old game systems and game cartridges, and of course, you can't really play your original Nintendo on the new flat screens,
Right.
things
Right.
like that. So they just sit there, and so he's like, "Okay, you know what? I think I'm going to get rid of them because I can get those on the Switch now."
Yeah.
And I was like, "Oh,
I remember
that's a big move."
and I remember they made like the little mini NESs that,
Yes.
that had like,
Uh-huh.
I guess it had a memory card in there that had like 30 or 40 games in it.
Oh yeah,
It was the original controller.
yeah.
Yeah.
it was
And then there's
original
different
controller.
emulators that are a little bit more complicated if you're if you're techy enough to be able to do the emulators. And
Yeah.
so, yeah, like I haven't played actually. I haven't gamed in a long time.
Oh,
But if I did, I would definitely go back to the old school and
yeah.
Tetris and Mario
yeah.
Brothers and Zelda.
Yeah. I'm playing one now. It's not Dragon Ball, but it's
Dragon Age.
No, it's
What kind of game is it? Like what's
it's a JRPG.
got it.
Okay.
I'm trying to think.
It's like a 10th or 11th in the series.
Oh wow. Okay.
It's
So-
somebody's gonna
So it's
comment on
another one
this.
of
Yeah,
those
yeah, yeah.
Final
No,
Fantasy
no,
games.
That's what I was. Yeah.
But
Well-
it's turn-based. So you
Okay.
don't need to be like super agility based.
Got it. Yeah.
That's handy.
Yeah. The other thing, a lot of times with like first person shooter games, like I actually get nauseous. Like I have that that weird whatever thing that happens where if I play a first person shooter for a long time,
Yeah.
just that like jarring aspect of the gun kind of going back and forth and the pacing actually makes me like sick. Like
Oh,
I
yeah.
can only do it for like 5 or 10 minutes.
Well, when
Yeah.
Fallout 76 came out, and it's one
Is
of my
that the one that
favorites.
Camden Park in it?
Yes, it had
Yeah, yeah,
Camden
yeah,
Park
yeah.
in it. It has Point Pleasant.
Yeah.
It's got all these West Virginia icons, and of course, I had to have that.
Sure. That's amazing. Yeah.
And you could jump off cliffs, and it would make me physically ill
Right.
because you really felt like,
Right.
the movement was so realistic that it was just like, oh my God, I think I'm going to get sick.
Yeah, I never got into it as much as you did.
Oh, I enjoyed it.
What about like the metaverse? Have you done Oculus stuff yet?
Oh, yes.
I didn't think that. I thought
love it.
I thought that was going to make me sick, but it actually didn't because I guess
Really?
it's so realistic
Yeah.
that because like with the first person shooters, like I don't feel like I'm in there. It's just more of like motion sickness or
Yeah.
something. But like, or at least my brain thinks it is. But the metaverse, like I actually don't get motion sickness in there because I think I'm so immersed. I don't
Yeah.
know. It's weird. I don't know. I don't get why
I still
sick
get
and-
some motion
you
sickness.
do get it. Okay, I don't get it
Um,
in there.
But mostly with the Oculus, I've been playing Supernatural, which
Oh.
is an exercise game essentially. And oh my God, it's so much fun.
Are you like worn out afterwards? Is it,
Yes,
like-
yeah. I mean that and Ragnarok.
Oh wow.
Have you played Ragnarok
No.
yet?
No.
Um,
I've
if
only
you're
played one game on
into
it.
any kind of music and rhythm type games, Ragnarok's so much fun because you're set up on a Viking ship
Oh wow.
and you're the drummer
yeah.
and you've got 4 drums in front of you
Got it.
and
Yeah,
it's
you're like,
usually using things like heavy metal, but I mean it will start going, you've got different levels, difficulty levels, and it's amazing.
Wow. Wow.
And it will give you an amazing workout.
I've only played one game really, and it was the Star Wars game.
Okay.
Aw, of
Awesome.
course.
yeah. I was like, I had to check that out, and I was blown away by it.
Oh,
It's,
yeah.
it's truly it was like, I remember the first time I used an iPhone, it was like kind of the same thing. I was like, whoa. I was like, this is
Yeah.
the future.
Yeah. Oh, very.
Like I've just
very
stepped
much
into
so.
the future. It's wild.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm wondering how much it's gonna scale into something like Ready Player One.
I think we're close.
It's getting there.
yeah.
They just have to make it, I think, more accessible.
Yeah.
It's still a little price range heavy,
Yeah.
but my daughter
I agree.
loves
I think we're
getting on the
getting there.
Oculus.
Yeah.
She plays Rec Room and a couple other games, and she loves that she can interact with the world around her
Yeah.
so much easier. And yeah,
That's going to be wild. I mean, like one day will we be sitting here next to each other, or we'll just be like holograms in the
Yeah.
metaverse? You know, I don't know. Like
I mean,
it's
and
very
definitely
it's-
like in Ready Player One, that was
Yeah.
your
Yep.
education was in the metaverse,
Right.
and you're in this world, and you're interacting as your, avatar.
Yeah.
That was a book reference, not
Yes,
a.
it is, and
Not
and a
the
movie,
movie.
but the
No.
book's much better.
Have you seen
Yes.
Free Guy? Have you seen
Oh,
Free Guy?
yes.
Yes.
Oh, that's a killer.
Yeah.
I loved it. I thought it was
Yeah.
so great. I mean, that
Yeah.
was awesome.
Yeah.
How many places was that thing streaming though?
Oh yeah.
It was all over the place.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They went nuts with.
Yeah, it was like on
Sharing that
every
one.
platform. Yeah.
Yeah, but it was a great movie.
Yeah. I loved it. That was fantastic. Yeah, a lot of references, just again, like
Oh,
tons
yeah.
of Easter eggs for like pop culture Easter eggs.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it was really
Oh
well done.
gosh, like Ready Player One wasn't full of them.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Oh now.
Ready
yeah,
Player
the
One
book
was a pop culture reference.
Yes.
Yeah.
Especially
a
like
major,
yeah, like
especially for gaming.
for gaming.
Yep.
Very and some of them went way because I'm like
Yeah.
not a I know a lot of the old school games, but the
Mm-hmm.
new stuff I didn't. But there was so many there. I was like, I
Oh, yeah.
know there's a bunch that flew over my head. I mean,
Yeah.
it was so
Well,
Easter
there was
egg
a lot of
heavy.
even old game systems
Yeah.
that were beyond my. I had I played Atari. I had
Yeah.
a Nintendo,
Mm-hmm.
but then there were all these other more obscure games, and my husband was like, I had that system.
Yeah,
I
Yeah.
was like, what?
there's
What-
something
what
for
is
everyone
it?
in there.
Oh,
Yeah.
there was.
Yeah, one of the best ways to go back and revisit the Easter eggs, other than reread the book, there were some genius podcasts
Wow. Yeah,
Mm.
that came out for Ready Player One.
just to like call out all the different Easter eggs
Yeah,
that people didn't
just
see.
for the Easter
Yeah,
eggs.
yeah, yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah, the thought that goes into these movies now are just unbelievable. Like they'll just like they tuck little things in the corner,
Mhm.
and it's like, did you see, like, and I guess it all a little bit started of it with, I guess in Raiders of the Lost Ark,
Mhm.
ET is like one of
Yeah.
the hieroglyphics in like Raiders of the Lost Ark. and
C3PO.
C3PO,
Yeah.
right? Yeah. So I think it's like really cool to see how that's like that world has really been kind of like expanded and
Oh, yeah.
yeah, just so much cool
Everything
stuff.
touches.
Yeah.
And now with like HD cameras, like you can like pause and like really kind of see like
Yeah.
details that you would have never noticed before. So they're even like license plates now. They're like kind of like making like callbacks to like special or certain editions and issues of comics of like
Mhm.
on license plates and
Oh.
they're like doing
Yeah.
references to all these.
Well, I
really
was just
obscure
watching
things.
a YouTube video that was going over the Easter eggs in the current season of Stranger Things.
Okay.
And I mean, there's references to stuff on like graffiti on the walls in the bathroom.
Wow.
Mhm.
I
Yeah.
mean, just everywhere, little things like that people are
See,
pulling.
now he's gonna have to start
Yeah,
watching
yeah.
Stranger Things.
I
Oh.
know, and what I'm like they're in
Oh,
season
it's-
4 now, right? So
Yeah.
I know I
Yeah,
got a lot
but
of
it's
It's
catching up
easy
to
to
do.
pick
ending
up.
with
Really?
5 too.
Okay.
It's got a
really
finite
Got it.
storyline.
Oh, really? So they know after 5 it's over.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's the
No.
plan.
easy. No. They're actually gonna spin it off.
Oh, are
really?
they doing spinoffs now?
Yeah, they're gonna do spinoffs.
Into like the 90s
Okay.
or
No
like,
idea
oh,
on
got it.
what.
I was
Yeah,
gonna
there's
say
not- yeah.
the world. I think there was a comic book
There is.
that is set up that had other characters like 11.
Yeah, I want them to do a
So-
spinoff with either 8 or Erica.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, just because Erica just cracks me up.
If you've not seen any of the Stranger Things,
So we're not
it's-
gonna
Yeah.
spoil
I know
it.
a little bit about it, but I don't know any of the characters. Like I'm not familiar with
the
it. Yeah.
idea is this kind of I guess you could say like a government funded program working with special children,
Got it.
and then it kind of goes off from there,
Got it.
and that's
Yeah.
like your background.
Gotcha. Yeah.
And yeah, it's really kind of cool. I mean, it in that respect, it's kind of like things like X-Men and things
Mhm.
like that, because you've got these special,
Right.
talented kids, so to speak. And
They actually make a reference
It's-
to X-Men in
Mhm.
there. In fact,
I'll have to like do a bender, and that's what I tend to do.
Yeah.
It's like I get really addicted to stuff like this, so I'll
Uh-huh.
like it'll be like 15 straight hours of
Well,
like let me watch
it's
all
very
season
easy.
1 in one night. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
The current season, the harder part about the current season is that they've gone from the typical TV length for a
Right.
series like episodes
Yeah.
which is usually like 30 minutes to an hour.
Right.
Yeah.
And this season, there are episodes that are coming up on like 2 hours.
Wow.
Yeah,
I mean,
the
it's
final
like
two are supposed to
watching
be like
an
that.
entire
Wow.
movie series, and we're still on.
And how many episodes a year do they have?
They're
season?
what, about 8 to 10?
8.
Yeah,
to
that's
10.
a lot of. Wow, I got a lot of catching up to do.
Yeah,
Oh.
Yeah. My
episode
eyes will be like
7.
bloodshot like after I do one of these benders.
Oh, it
Episode
is so fun.
7 is like an hour and a half.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I just watched it last night, so it's pretty fresh in my mind.
I did that. Like I did the last bender I did was for the boys. Like the.
Oh,
like-
yeah.
Oh,
like-
My husband's
gosh.
watching that one right now.
I don't know if it's appropriate to talk about any of that stuff that happens on that. That's
That was rough.
That's
a
That was rough.
wild,
It's
wild
definitely not
series.
PG.
Yeah, the latest one, no.
I don't know if there's a single scene we can talk about because it's
Yeah.
just so outrageous.
And the credit scenes, or the
Oh.
beginning says "the boys." There you go.
Yeah, it's
That's
yeah.
as PG as that got.
Yeah. Like I'd heard a lot about it, and then one weekend I was like, okay, I'm like gonna
Yeah.
watch every single episode of that.
Oh, gosh.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I'm like completely caught up on that, but it took me, a weekend to
Oh
sort
yeah.
Yeah, my
immerse into that.
boyfriend is really into the boys.
Yeah.
And he's like read the comics
Right.
and all
Ooh.
that. And so he says, and this isn't a spoiler, he just says that they're going back to the comics.
Oh wow. Okay.
Oh wow.
Gotcha.
So the divergence
Right.
at the beginning, it's going to
Right.
go a little
Yeah.
more in line.
It's always good to keep like the comic book fans on their toes a little bit too. So
Mhm.
it's like
Yeah.
it's what you recognize and it's still in the spirit of the characters, but they want to surprise them in a way and make it fun for them
Oh, yeah.
also. So it sounds like they're hitting the right
Yeah.
level. They're
Oh,
like
gosh.
they're kind of in that Goldilocks zone of like
Yeah.
not giving them exactly where it's too on the nose, but then it's still what it's supposed to be. It sounds like they probably
Kind of
did a
like
good-
Walking Dead. And
yeah. And I guess
Changing
like
up some of the characters and stuff for that.
and a lot of the
Mhm.
Marvel stuff, I think,
Yeah.
like again, probably have been good at that hitting that Goldilocks zone as well. So
Yeah.
well, that's cool to hear. Yeah, I don't know much about the comics, so I'm like, I don't know what to expect, but what I do know is that like every episode I expect to be like, whoa,
Yeah.
like they just went pretty far out there. It's
Yeah, that one goes on that pushing the edge, like we were talking about with art.
oh yeah,
Okay.
definitely
That was definitely pushing some edges.
for sure.
Well,
Well, I'm looking at the time.
Yeah.
So,
oh my God.
yeah.
I think we went over an hour.
Yeah,
you
I
know?
think we're going over an hour.
Yeah.
So, are there any kind of closing, statements that you've got? Anything that you want to, bring up before we say goodnight?
No, but I felt like when you said statement, I felt like I should have like something like. Well, no, I don't know. I just wanted to thank you for having me on your podcast. I love that you guys are giving this to this platform for fans of pop culture here at Marshall to engage and talk about it and to like. I think it's just an awesome form that you guys are created. I can't wait to see what comes out of this and the club, all the stuff that you guys are doing. It's just so exciting. I love what you guys are doing, and obviously, also thank you for just having me on. I think it's always fun to rap and talk about like get nerdy about stuff, I just want to thank you guys.
Awesome.
Oh, thank you.
Yes,
Yes.
thank you. Thank you for helping us get started with, of course, the podcast and the logistical side of it here.
Yeah,
All the technical and equipment and everything. We really appreciate that.
Yeah.
It's a very impressive studio for one.
Yes, this is
So-
amazing.
well,
Yeah.
this is your guys' home now.
Yeah.
This is your place too. So like use it anytime and
Awesome.
as often as you guys want.
Awesome. Well, folks, we really appreciate you listening and being a part of this. And of course, our first podcast, which is, woo,
In the can,
amazing.
first
Yes,
one done.
First
yes.
one and done. That's the hardest part. You
It
got to
is.
get the first one. And then after that,
Oh, thank you, Ben,
not too bad.
for being our first guest.
Yes, absolutely. It's an absolute honor.
Now everyone's going to have to measure up to you.
Well,
exactly. Yeah. You have set the bar.
Yeah, and if anybody does a more awesome job, let me know. I got to get on again. I gotta.
We can make that happen.
I gotta stay on. I gotta stay on the top of the power rankings. there.
Exactly.
on the best guest power rankings.
That's okay. We can do follow-up episodes.
I'm in. I'm in.
Definitely.
Star Wars theory episode. Trust me, if we do that.
We'll do some live podcasts
Okay.
for some of the future events, and we can do a live Star Wars podcast.
I'm in.
Oh
talking
my
about Star
gosh.
Wars theories.
I'm in. Oh my gosh.
Oh my
Yes.
gosh.
That could be fun for WoW.
Oh gosh. Or we could do a live podcast on Obi-Wan at the end of this season.
Yeah.
Oh,
2 weeks
that
from
could
now.
be a lot of
Yeah.
fun.
Oh no, next week's the last one. Yeah, because
Yeah.
Yeah.
Very
Wow.
cool. Yeah, that could be a lot of fun.
so
All
many
right.
good ideas. Yeah.
Well, thank you again, everyone.
Thank you for attending.
Join us again for HerdCon Popcast, and be sure to check out our website, marshall.edu/HerdCon. Follow us on social media. We'll be posting, I hope to have this up on YouTube and up on our website and probably through the Marshall Digital Scholar. So since we have our own home for stuff like that too. So yeah,
Yay.
we're excited. We look forward to seeing you again. Bye.